Okay, everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on where you are. This is Kevin from Elastos, from Silicon Valley. This is third time we get together online for the global DApp community leaders meeting, conference, online conference. So welcome. And the KP will share you, we already see the share screen, virtual meeting number 3. So KP can start talking about what we're gonna do this week. And before we start, the basic rule for everyone. The first one is you have to use your headphone or you mute your microphone. So when you're not talking, please mute. And then when you're talking, make sure you have a headset. You don't use your PC speaker or phone speaker. Otherwise, other people may hear a loud noise or echo noise. So try to just use your headset. Okay, that's a rule. And when you're talking, you can just unmute and talk. All right. So KP can start. Aaron?
All right. Yeah. Can you?
All right. Yeah. Go ahead.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. This is Kieran, or KP. This is our third virtual meetup. This is mostly focused towards more of the development side of things for developers. But again, everyone is welcome to join as usual. So let's go ahead and get started. So what's on the agenda? Review from last meetup, what we talked about, and then our main presentation is regarding the I'll be introducing various GitHub projects that are open sourced as of right now. And for the demo, I am gonna show a really quick demo on, if you're not very familiar with GitHub and if you're a non-developer, then I'm going to show you how you can raise an issue and asking, any sort of technical questions directly to Kevin or to other developers, so you can start to utilize that. We would like to see more people, more community members get involved in that process because we can't always be on Telegram, especially Kevin. So, it's better if we raise these issues on GitHub directly. So I'll be going through that. I'm not sure what we have planned for demo. We'll get there. We'll see what we have. But other than that, that's pretty much it. This should be a short meetup, really. We can just dedicate some of the time just asking questions and other engagement discussions, anything that we might have. All right. So review from last virtual meetup, we talked about the Elastos bounty program. The site was to be completed by late May, early June. That is still on track. We talked about the differences between the traditional app, how the traditional app works, comparing that to the Ethereum decentralized application, which is a hybrid DApp. And also we talked about how Elastos decentralized application would work, and which is considered a pure DApp. So we also talked about Elastos Carrier. It takes over all the network traffic in the Elastos ecosystem. And a little bit about VMs. You can think of Elastos VMs being spread out across the internet. Like if there's something close, you can compare these to like Amazon VMs, AWS VMs that are out in the cloud. But with Elastos, everything is decentralized, and every communication that is done is completely peer-to-peer. And let's see. And Kevin had a meetup idea actually last week, which we talked about. Maybe we can have a specific dedicated meetup to talk about. Having set amount of Elastos runtime, carry out the consensus for something. And this is something that, we might involve other developers who are more, tech friendly, so we can discuss that in more detail, but that's still, early stage. That's just an idea that was thrown out. All right, some questions from social media channels. I do have 3 questions, but I don't know if we want to go over other questions that other people might have from last meetup, but I was able to collect these questions for today, so I'll just go through them one by one. And Kevin can correct me if I'm on the wrong track, or if we need to add something on top of my answer to these questions. So the first question is, what's the process of turning an existing blockchain project to be a sidechain to work on Elastos? So when we say turn an existing blockchain project into a sidechain, it actually means we're porting an existing VM, like Ethereum VM, virtual machine, or Neo, that is currently run on the blockchain nodes, so that these VMs can be run on top of the device. So that means that the Elastos DApps in the future can utilize these VMs to run their smart contract code. So doing this also means that if Ethereum VM already does what you want to do, and that if that's something that you want to implement in your application, then you can make this happen with this sort of when you're porting these existing VMs as to work as sidechains to run these smart contracts. How will websites work on the smart web? Will some nodes host websites? Then one node will probably need to store many websites. So everything is peer-to-peer. So in that sense, each node, and these nodes, when we talk about these nodes, these are not actually mining nodes. These nodes on the network, they don't really need to. So some of them may be light, while other nodes may be heavy nodes. It really depends what kind of purpose that node is serving. So you might have like a micro website that you might host from your from your own device somewhere in your house, and that would be just a simple website where you are only allowing access to specific people that you want. So you would only allow them access, and only they would be able to access your website. And that's pretty much how a micro website works, completely peer-to-peer. Whereas in other cases, you might have some of the web DApps where they might actually do a whole lot more than just a micro website. Like if I were to give an example, like decentralized Facebook, let's say, that is not really a micro website because there's a lot going on there. So you could actually adopt so for something like storage, you could adopt what ViewChain is doing with the IPFS, where data is distributed across many nodes. There's a lot of we can actually dedicate an entire meetup talking about this, but that's pretty much how these web DApps, so to speak, would work on the Elastos smart web in the future. How will protection from DDoS work? When a malicious ID is blacklisted, the device can immediately reconnect and request a new ID. How will Elastos stop it? Well, the Elastos carrier, the peer-to-peer decentralized network communication protocol, is a friend-to-friends network, which means that if the node is on the network but hasn't established any sort of friend relationship, then these two nodes cannot even generate any sort of communication. So there's no attack that can be made in this on this node that is hosting your micro website or whatever. So it's because of this very reason, because all these IDs are actually stored in the blockchain, and only after all the requests get verified, only then, and then also in addition to that, you need to have allowed access to that. So only then, because of these both things, the attacks like DDoS, distributed denial of service, more commonly known as, it's kind of restricted. I mean, it's not completely eliminated, but because of that trust that is required, it is very, very restricted. So with that said, did you want to add anything to these questions, Kevin, or can we move on?
You can move on. Okay. You can ask a question from the community. If anybody have a question, you can ask now in the meeting. It's no question, so let's keep going.
All right. All right, is Clarence on? Because I'll let him talk about the updates on Hong Kong and Vietnam meetup.
Yeah, I'm juggling these and the EBP site. So, and right now we have Vietnam pretty much confirmed for the 19th and Hong Kong for the 21st. We just have to get our marketing materials together, and as soon as we get a landing page up, we will start distributing those. So if you guys know any friends in Hong Kong or Vietnam, would definitely be great if you guys help us spread the word. Vietnam will be the 19th around 6 or 7 p.m. And we hope to actually have, I think around the same time in London, Rongchen and everybody will be there. So it's about 12 p.m. in London when it's about 6, 7 p.m. in Vietnam. And so we hope that we can have like a video conference with everyone in for both of these meetups.
Yeah, I hope I can join from London.
Yeah, it's perfect timing because it's like around 11 to 12 p.m. So you guys can probably video conference in. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll release information in the next few days.
Awesome. All right, so main presentation, intro to Elastos GitHub projects. So as I said earlier, today's meetup is focused towards developers. And I just wanted to reiterate in this meetup that every meetup will have a dedicated audience. We'll either have these meetups dedicated to leaders, in which case we actually send the invite to these leaders. So, you know, we're not going to advertise that to the entire community, but these will be recorded. And then as far as the developers or the wider community, we will advertise those everywhere. So those are 3 kinds of different virtual meetups that we will have, and this is one of those developers focused meetups. So brief intro to various projects of Elastos that are open source already. Some are not open source, obviously, because they're still being worked on. It's still a work in progress, but the goal is to have the sort of this one software development kit for Elastos Runtime. So you see that we already have an SDK for Elastos Carrier. So what will probably happen is by the end of August or somewhere around there, all of those APIs will be combined into one giant runtime SDK, so that developers can just start using this one single SDK to connect to the Elastos Smart Web from their decentralized applications. So that's the goal, anyways. So there are a lot of GitHub projects. So we can obviously dedicate future meetups to go in depth on certain, some of these topics or projects in the future. We might even, dedicate these meetups to have like a, run like a demo app or something, and dedicate that for a meetup. And there's a lot of different topics that we may cover for in the future, and we can definitely talk about that and have some sort of poll going on again as last week for these topics. All right, so the main GitHub project is actually your, if you just wanted to know what Elastos is all about, what all the different projects are, stuff like that, you would go into this link here, github.com/elastos, pretty easy to remember. We have been putting out a lot of new content to this repository. I'm going to go over that in a little bit, but it pretty much, if you are trying to get, if you know any developer, then you can pretty much give them this link. And this link actually had a pretty nice README that contains all the different projects, their summary, what they're about, and then has a link to each of those individual projects again there. And just today, this morning, we actually added 2 beginners guides, one geared focused towards non-developers. So, we basically aggregated all the information that was available, and then put that together in sort of an ebook kind of format. Now, this is just the guides that you see. We actually have one for both non-developers and developers. Those are still a work in progress, and there will be, future drafts in the future. This is just one of the first drafts, so it's not very complete, but it's definitely something that you can start reading right away to start. So in the future, we'll probably have like diagrams, and then as more developers get involved, we'll into these beginners guide. So actually, let's go over and take a look at what that is. Can you see my GitHub page for Elastos? Or do you still
Yes, I can see, no problem.
Okay. All right. All right. So this is the link that I mentioned earlier. As you can see, it pretty much gives you a brief introduction to Elastos, and then it has a nice table of contents, like, quick summary, and then how Elastos works section. We have the link to main the white paper, and then the sidechain white paper, and then there's a link to like what the non-developer guide is all about, and then there's a link there, and then there's also the beginner's guide for developers, and then there's a link there. And then all the list of different projects, list of repositories. And we're gonna go over all of these today. But as you can see, there's a huge number of projects that are currently actively being worked on. And for something like Trinity, it is still being worked on, so it will be available to the general public. It will be published open source whenever, but not all the code is open source yet, but that's just something to keep in mind. But they do still have the repositories though, so you can go check out their README and then see what the project is about. And I think some of them are still in Chinese, so we're trying to get those translated to English as soon as possible, so we can get more developers on board and get started right away. But that is an ongoing process. And then there's also the link to how you can contribute to the community. And then okay. So here's a nice guide, like how you can start contributing. And this is a long page, so you can read through that if you want on your free time. And there's also a section where how you can raise the issue on GitHub pages, projects. And I'm gonna go over that a little bit today. All right, so that's pretty much the entry point to the entire Elastos ecosystem. So this is the page that you would get into even if you are a non-developer, because like I said, we have contents here geared for everyone, not just developers. So this is the main entry point. This is what we want everyone to see and look at. All right, the next one is Elastos OS. And I think we'll, so let me go over to community. If you go to elastos.community, this is our community page. If you go to Elastos Virtual Meetup, you actually see that all the previous recording and the PowerPoint slides are all available. So you can actually go here in the future and then check out the slides or even the recording from here. So that's something that that might come in handy. So all these links, don't worry about it. These slides will all be there available right after this meetup. So anyways, going over this project, this is a project for the actual operating system, the C++ operating system that can run directly on the hardware. The operating system kernel is implemented using the CAR technology. CAR stands for Component Assembly Runtime. So what that means is, I'm not going to go over into too much detail, but just a general overview. So what that means is components from different sources can interoperate. So you can call various functions from different programming languages, and you can all interact with each other. And if you read the white paper, it actually shows that a little bit. But that's pretty much how the paradigm is here. And then when components upgrade, they don't really affect any other component because every component is independent of the programming language. All right, Elastos.rt. This is the runtime.
Can I add something though?
Yeah.
For Elastos OS, one of the really cool things about that is, well, as you know, we just announced our partnership with WeatherBlock. So you can imagine that, you know, unlike small devices, you don't need to be running any other OS. You literally can just put like a super small, like Raspberry Pi, put Elastos OS, and just have these mini devices everywhere. So it's a huge advantage for the Elastos network.
Yes, I completely skipped over that. Thank you. Yes, that's the beauty. So if you remember from last week, we went a little bit over how Elastos OS works. It's pretty much an operating system, so you can, and it's pretty lightweight. Doesn't leave a whole lot of footprint, so you can install these, as Clarence was saying, onto these smart devices like the I think WeatherBlock is doing something with smart cameras and smart sensors, all of that. So could come in handy over there, and also the routers and that kind of stuff. All right, Elastos runtime. This is a runtime sandboxed closed environment. Elastos DApps will run on Elastos runtime, which runs on top of existing operating systems such as Android, iOS, Linux, etc., etc. So apps are free to run, and their performance is comparable to existing mobile apps. So in addition to that, Elastos also supports traditional programming languages, making it very easy to write code. So one of the things, I don't think we went over this last week, but the DApp developers can actually use Cordova to develop their HTML5 applications that will be running inside on the Trinity browser. That is not open source yet, but I think that will be soon.
At the end of this meeting, I can show you something about this. I just got some simple code. I can show everyone what it looks like.
That's awesome. Okay, that's what we'll have for demo then. So all these HTML5 applications / JavaScript will be running in Trinity browser. So you can think of Trinity browser as it is based off of the Chromium browser that's open source with a little twist. Again, we can dedicate, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but we can dedicate an entire meetup just talking about that. So I'm not going to go into that more here. So if you're wondering what Cordova is, it's a mobile application development framework. It enables software programmers to build applications for mobile devices using HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, instead of relying on the platform-specific APIs like those in Android, iOS, or Windows Phone. So it pretty much extends the features of HTML and JavaScript to work with the device. So when you build an application for mobile devices using Cordova, it's truly cross-platform because these these are not really dependent on any of those Android APIs or anything like that. So these are very cross-platform, and you can run it in multiple devices. So the resulting apps are not really pure mobile applications. They're kind of hybrid in a sense that they're neither truly native mobile application because all the layout rendering is done with web views instead of the platform's native UI framework. And in addition to that, they're also not purely web-based either, because they're not just web applications, but are packaged as applications for distribution and have access to native device APIs. So it's kind of a mixture of native and hybrid code snippets that creates these mobile applications. And this is how, using Cordova, you can target multiple platforms. I mean, there's some other development frameworks out there too, but we just decided to go with Cordova. For non-Elastos apps such as native Android or iOS applications, users can also access the Elastos Smart Web through the SDK. This will be C++ SDK to begin with, because you can actually call a C++ SDK from within Android or iOS apps With Android, you can call it through the GNI, while the iOS apps can just call these SDKs directly. And these native apps that are not really pure Elastos decentralized applications will just be accessing the Elastos Smart Web, but won't actually be running inside Elastos Runtime. So in that sense, they're not really pure DApps. They're sort of like your traditional Ethereum DApp or other decentralized applications that are out there. Just a way to access the Elastos Smart Web. This is done just to make it easier for existing mobile developers to integrate their existing mobile apps to Elastos, so that and with this, you'll also be able to keep your non-Elastos app data in your Elastos cloud storage, which is completely decentralized. All right. So as I said earlier, all of the SDKs, APIs that are available for the carrier and DID in the future, and then a whole bunch of other things will be available through the Runtime SDK. This is pretty much the main. I would consider this the main project of Elastos, because this is exactly how you would be able to develop, using this one single point of SDK. You can develop your applications in the future. You can build this on, if you were to go to this link, you can actually build this on Docker, using Docker or Ubuntu or Mac OS. I think there's some Hello World demo app already that was available on YouTube a while ago, and there's also source code for that if you go to this repository, if you go to examples. All right. Elastos.ela. This is the digital currency solution within the Elastos ecosystem. So this source code, actually, you can use this to build a full node of Ella. And you can do it. You can build this on Mac, Ubuntu, or Docker environment. And if you were to, I don't know if I can go to this link here, but let me go here. So this is the repository page, and the README. The documentation is pretty self-explanatory, so you can actually follow this and then start running this. Obviously, it's not public, so you can't just start mining, but something that you can play around with in the meantime. There's the Node API if you wanted to check that out. Again, this is in Chinese, but I think some of this stuff. But I have translated some of this in English. If you go to Developer's Guide, which I was going to go over in a little bit, build a full node of Ella. Over here, yeah, actually here, yeah, API of Elastos.ella. I just did a Google Translate, but we'll have the official translation into English soon. So stay tuned for that. Oh, I stopped sharing. My bad. Let me get back into that. Let me know when you can see my screen again.
No problem. We can see your screen.
Okay. All right. We have elastos.ella.spv. As some of you know, what SPV is, because we've been talking about this a lot on Twitter and stuff. So this is the SDK of SPV, Simplified Payment Verification, implementation of the Elastos digital currency. So this is actually a set of encryption algorithm. It has the peer-to-peer network and SPV-related implementation in this project. So there's actually a folder called SPV Wallet. If you go to this GitHub project there, it includes a SPV Wallet implementation. So if you were to go through the documentation, actually install it, you can do some cool things like creating your own wallet, seeing account balance, and wide variety of other options. So, if you wanted to get started like right now, you could actually, go to this folder and then check out the code and, I don't know, maybe create your own wallet. But that's what SPV allows you to do. And then there's also the SPV.node. This also the main difference is so it implements an Ella node-like program based on the SPV SDK that I talked about earlier. So it pretty much provides all the interfaces as the Ella full node program. It can do almost the same thing as an Ella full node, however, with reduced data size and less computing resource. So the only this node actually only verifies proof of work of blocks and does not verify transactions. So because of that reason, not a whole lot of computing resources needed. Whereas if you were to do a full node for Ella, it will also verify those transactions. So the only thing that this will not do is it will not verify transactions. For that, you actually need to build a full node of Ella. There's also no transaction pool and mining. So SPV node does not actually receive unpacked transactions and does not do mining of the blocks. That's another thing to keep in mind. With this SPV.node, address registrations are needed. So SPV node actually uses a transaction filter to filter corresponding transactions with only the registered addresses that you have defined. So some of the differences that you see here between this node, SPV.node, and the full node is it has reduced data size. It only stores transactions according to the address that you registered, less computing resource, no transaction pool and mining, and address registrations are needed. So those are some of the differences. Ella.client. This, you can think of this as a client program of the Ella node. So this is pretty much a command line tool that you can use to control different local nodes, see the node information, etc. This project also has a light implementation of the Ella wallet. So you can use that to create your Ella account, receive, create, sign, or send transactions. And you can also run a node locally and then set the miner address to your wallet account, and then run the node to then get your own Ellas and then do whatever you want with your Ellas after that. So that's pretty cool. It's just a client, an interface that you can use to interact with various Ella nodes. Utilities.java. This is a set of tools and utilities for generating a transaction signature. There's two forms of this that are available. You can either use the Kali API that are available, or you can also do the exact same thing, but with a standard web request. There's also Ella.utility. It's a common library referenced by all the repositories of Ella nodes and clients. So, all the other repositories like Elastos.ela, Elastos.ela.client, Ella.spv, all of these are referencing some of the methods that are, libraries that are defined here in this utility repository. So this is a basic component of most of the repositories. It contains the message protocol of peer-to-peer network, contains crypto algorithm of Ella coin. So because of this, because it touches various other projects, any sort of change that you make to this repo will affect all the other repos that reference it. So any new commit that you do, if you're interested in contributing to the code, any new commit that you make to this repo should be treated very cautiously. All right, this is our Elastos Carrier native SDK. This is a decentralized peer-to-peer communication framework. This repo is actually the native SDK from which all other SDKs are based on. So if you remember a while ago, we had some chat applications that were, that you can build using Node.js, or actually there also is a sample example for Android chat app, or I think someone also did an iOS chat app. All those are all based on this native SDK. You have to build this first before you can, start developing those apps for other platforms. So you can build this on Ubuntu, macOS, or even Docker container. And as I said earlier, it has to be built before other SDKs, such as the Android, iOS, for Swift, that can be used. And you can use this to cross compile to Android, even Raspberry Pi actually, and iOS. And you can build an API documentation using this native SDK so that you can look at various API endpoints that you can utilize throughout your application. And as I mentioned, again, I just wanted to reiterate that all the APIs that are available right now with this, from this SDK, all of these will be available, will be integrated into the Runtime SDK when everything is live, so that developers don't even need to interact with this particular SDK in the future. All they have to do is just know our Runtime SDK, and that's all they would need to know. All right, Node.js SDK. This is sort of a Node.js wrapper for Elastos Carrier Native that we talked about earlier. It basically allows JavaScript code to call the Carrier C++ functions, just a wrapper to the native SDK that can be utilized by Node developers to write their chat app, well, not just chat application, but any sort of application that uses the Elastos Carrier network. And lots of sample apps are already available for this repo, actually. And all right, and same thing for iOS. This is a Swift API wrapper and Objective-C APIs for Elastos Carrier Native. This is mainly geared towards iOS developers. You can generate the documentation for Swift APIs and all that from this. And same thing for Android. This is the Java API wrapper geared towards the Android developers. And also you can generate the documentation for this by going to Android Studio Tools, and then if you click on Generate Java Doc, then it'll generate the documentation for these Java APIs. And then this is the actual, I think we might want to, I think we'll probably in the future combine this into a folder in this Android SDK, so that, because right now this is just a single repository that just has this sample code for Android. So we might, I think that's what we'll do in the future, but this is just a sample code that you can use to develop and run an Android chat application that uses the Android Carrier SDK. And you can actually directly, clone this into your own environment and then import this project on Android Studio and then run the demo app pretty easily. I don't know how some of you, how familiar you are with, or how you have been keeping up with the repositories that are available, but I think this is one of the new ones that was put out a couple of days ago, I think, called Carrier Demo Remoter. So this is a demo app to show some of the things that can be done over Elastos Carrier network. So if you were to follow the directions, it's actually a demo, so you can try to run this, but it shows you can use this app to control different devices via a method called a NAT traversal. So some of the things that you can do with this app, you can use it for remote control utility. Some of the things that you can already do is you can use this app to turn on, off the light on the phone, ringtone, increase, decrease, or even turn on off the camera. So you can see this side of, implementation using the Carrier. Carrier, again, because it is a communication protocol, it can not only be used for simple chat apps, but it can be used to develop very sophisticated apps, because all of the applications on Elastos platform will use this to communicate between devices, between VMs that are in the Elastos Smart Web. So if you can find some cool use case that you can that you have thought of that we don't have the demo for, feel free to start playing around and have your own demo app, and then let one of us know, and we can actually review the code and then put it up on GitHub. All right, Elastos Trinity. This is what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Even though not all the code is open source yet, it's basically it's based on the Chromium browser, open source Chromium browser. This browser actually will be used to run the different Elastos decentralized applications. So it aims to implement a cross-platform application that can run on top of Android, iOS, Windows, macOS. I think initially Android will be supported. Well, targeting Android and then iOS, and then other platforms will be available in the future. And then you can think of this as the entrance from the classical internet into the trusted Elastos internet. So it's basically a web browser project. It's still in stealth mode. I think also we're trying to get the documentation translated into English, but you can already check out some of the documentation, and I don't know if you wanted to Google Translate or something in the meantime, but you can start looking around, and a lot of the UI designs and all of that are also in GitHub, so you can start poking around that. Elastos Carrier is embedded into the browser, so there's no need for a server, because if you think about it, on a traditional website, you actually need a server. So in order to get rid of that, we need Elastos Carrier, and that's exactly why Elastos Carrier is embedded into the browser itself. So there is no centralized server that is needed to run your applications. Decentralized applications can run safely inside Trinity browser while also connecting to the peer-to-peer network using Elastos Carrier. And other Elastos runtime services, in addition to Carrier, are also provided by Trinity. And this is actually, I think, some of the code is already open source for this, Trinity Android, for Android. It hosts the Trinity code for Android. You can deploy Trinity browser for Android, and then use Cordova to develop HTML5 Elastos DApps that will be running using Trinity. All right, we got a couple more things should be done. We got the Ditto Box Server. This is a pretty cool demo that anyone can start running if you're familiar with the code. If you poke around the code, this actually integrates the OwnCloud server and Elastos Carrier, so that you can set up your own little private home storage in your computer somewhere that is behind a router or a firewall. And then after you deploy this server, because it uses Elastos Carrier, it will integrate Elastos Carrier. You can access your files at any time from anywhere using the Elastos Carrier network. There's another cool case that even if the server is deployed behind the router, this should be accessible from anywhere in the world, really, as long as you can get to that router. So you can think of this as your own personal server to store your personal files that you own. So in the future, some of the applications might integrate something like this. Like for your micro website, actually, it makes perfect sense to have your own server where you're just running your simple website from your own basement, and then you're only allowing like certain people to access this website where you might host some files or whatever. Because it's very secure, it uses the Elastos Carrier combined with the blockchain technology. There's very little chance of some malicious actors like taking over your website because of this reason. So in the future, you'll be able to just using Elastos Carrier, all this, you should be able to just host your simple little website without going through an intermediary like AWS or whatever, and you can be rest assured that it's all secure because it's using the it's part of the Elastos Smart Web, so a lot less chance of attacks. And then this is actually a demo app for iOS that integrates the OwnCloud over Elastos Carrier network, through which you can access or save personal files to the server that you deployed earlier. So you can think of this as the client app that you can install on your phone, whatever, that will talk to the Ditto Box server that you might have deployed earlier. So this app actually demonstrates that all traditional HTTPS based app can be refactored to using Elastos Carrier over Carrier network. So you are allowing Elastos Carrier to take over all the network traffic, and then and ensuring the security aspect of it. So you can deploy your server at local network at your home, and then you can access the servers from anywhere using this client app. And there's also the source code for Android app. Does the exact same thing and just interacts with the server. There's a whole bunch of other projects too. I didn't want to include, but you can check those out later. We have our community. This is our main developer community page where we put in different videos, demo apps, and stuff like that. Because we already have the developer guide on Elastos. Maybe we'll just in the future, I don't know, we might combine this into that developer guide, but we'll see. But Elastos community.global, this is actually used to bring together developers from all around the world. So you actually have a particular section. You can create, if there's no section for your particular country region, you can create that and then submit a pull request, and then we'll add that in. So in the future, like if you have any sort of events, if you wanted to get that out to the community, you can add that into Elastos community.global so that other people can also be on top of things. There's the sidechain, not public. There's client sidechain. There's the Ella Pay, which is a service. Again, these are all in stealth mode, but you can still go to these repositories. Actually, you can read some documentation there, even though the code might not be available. There's also the repository for hackathon from Beijing. And then I think that's it. All right, so this is briefly I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions to Kevin or any other developers, all you need to do is you need to go to the appropriate GitHub repository. So if you have, some questions regarding the Ella node, like how that works, like I think someone actually had a question on Reddit a while ago. They were asking, what's the current size of an Ella block? So for something like that, even I didn't know the answer. This was like, I think a couple months ago. And then we just created a GitLab issue on the appropriate GitHub repository. And then anyone can create these issues really. So I'm gonna go over that here. So you just create this issue, and then you don't have to be a developer. It's very simple to get started. All you have to do is create an account on GitHub and then start raising an issue, and then someone should have some sort of answer. Even if they might not know the full answer, they will provide some answer or resources that you can go to. All right, and then for something like Elastos Bounty Program website, like some of the stuff that you might want to, like you might have suggestions for, you can actually also create an issue for that. And let's actually go over that. So if you go to, let's say you have a question on like block size, so you would go to elastos.ella, and then you would go to issues, and then just create a new issue, and then and just put a title, and then just leave your question there. It's that simple. Not really much to it. Anyone can do it. And actually, I think there's the Ella block question. Actually, I'm the one who, I should probably close this, but I asked this question here because our community member had asked this in Reddit. So I actually did have that person come over here so that they might get used to this whole process. So it's just, when we have both the developers and non-developers working together, we can grow faster. And, some of the questions that, not all the questions are accounted for by developers. So when someone from with a different perspective has a different question, it really brings that issue to the entire community so that we can try to tackle the problem appropriately. So like one of the examples that I'll give you is someone actually opened up this. There was a weird UI bug in the richest list. So they just created this issue, and then we went over this, and then I was able to talk to one of the developers, and that was actually a bug. So that was, I think that was fixed with the recent update. But things like that, So for something like EBP, you can go to, I don't know if I have open here. Actually, I do. So because this is part of the Elastos community, if you see Elastos bounty program, that's it. There's actually all the code here already. So because, if you have some sort of suggestions for the website, just come over to this and then go to issue and then create a new issue and start, obviously we want you to be as detailed as possible, but any sort of suggestions, you can raise that as an issue. It doesn't have to be a particular question. It can be a suggestion, comment, whatever the case may be. All right, I'll briefly go over the developer and the non-developer guide, and then
bugs too. When those guys get into EBP, definitely report any bugs for us. We'd love to know. Don't just, oh, there's a bug and not tell us.
Yes, that is the number one thing, actually, because the site will be going live. There is, we're not going to say it's going to be 100% bug free. There is going to be some bugs. So, if once you start playing around, registering, just feel free to try different features of the website. And if you find some sort of bug in the UI or some sort of functionality, just come over here and then create a new issue so that, we can all keep track of these issues, and then we can try to resolve it as soon as possible. Because if we don't know about these bugs, you can't really test for something that you don't know. So if you have any suggestions or any sort of bug that you encounter, make sure to raise an issue here. All right.
Ironically, sorry, let me interrupt really quick. Really quick. Ironically, too, if there are bugs in the EBP website, we might actually have bounties in the EBP website to fix those. So if you're a developer or something, we'd love to get more people involved. So not just fixing bugs, but the code's there. It's public, open source. So you can even take a crack at it. Just try to fix it and make a PR. And actually, if you're a developer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So definitely invite anyone to fix the bugs if you find them.
Awesome. So if you didn't know, we put out the 2 beginners guides to Elastos. Let me go over here again. I think I closed that. So one of them is geared more towards non-developers. So you can check out, I think there's like 10 or 15 pages worth of information here. And it contains a lot of information, and this is just the first draft. We plan on adding like different diagrams and then, a bunch of artwork. And then eventually we want to move this over to, I don't know, maybe the idea is to get it over on a booklet or something that we can then hand out on different meetups. And then one of the community members actually suggested to me that, hey, it would be a good idea if we could have this beginner's guide for non-developers where you can just hand this to general public and then, give them out, and then have some sort of, on the meetup itself, we ask questions from the booklet, and then whoever answers it gets rewarded or something. So that would be pretty cool. So it gives some incentive to read about Elastos and, how it's approaching some of the problems that are prevalent today and stuff like that. So yeah, feel free to, go over these. It has a rich history. Even if you look at the development history, there's a rich history, starting in 2000. And then I just went over one of the interviews with Rong, and then put in some of the best quotes that I could find from the interview. So make sure to check these out. I think you're going to learn a lot about the intention behind this project, and why it was even initiated in the first place, because there's a lot of problems with how the traditional internet works. So feel free to check this out. I just compiled a list of quotes from Rong talking about this, with the existing problems. And then you can also check out the blockchain architecture, the merge mining, how main chain sidechain works, and there's a link to white paper. And then I actually made it pretty easy. I took it from the sidechain paper and I put it into my own words, so it's easy to understand. I'm actually gonna have a video dedicated to sidechain white paper, so stay tuned for that. I think I'm gonna put that out tomorrow, but feel free to check this out in the meantime. And then there's the business model, talks about how digital assets work, how Elastos is approaching the problem, and also has different comparisons to other blockchain projects out there. Elastos by itself, it's not a blockchain project. It is a network operating system project powered by blockchain technology. Blockchain is only one component. There's a lot of other components. So that's something to keep in mind. So, but, if you wanted to, if someone asks you what differences between Ethereum, Elastos, or EOS, Elastos, you can come over here and check this out and even give them the link to this non-developer beginner's guide so they're educated and they can know more about that. All right, and then the developer guide is something similar but geared towards developers. Again, I didn't really have a whole lot of information here, but I do have these table of contents here, and then all the demos. I'll probably put this on the first page so that it's there's very easy access to it, so you can check out all the previous demos for different applications, whatever. And then you'll see that made it very easy to understand, because you might know the link to certain repositories, but you might not know what they do. So you can come over here, and then in the future, this will obviously be expanded, but you can go to build full node, and then it'll take you to this README, and then pretty much makes it easy to get started right away. So there's just simple things like that. All right. I will hand this over to Kevin, I guess, for the next part, a demo if we have it for Trinity. If not, then we'll skip this, but yeah.
Well, I don't really think it is a demo, just I can say the peak, it's a preview peak of what Trinity and DApp looks like. Let me share my screen, give me a second. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Can anybody see my screen? Oh, yes, okay, great. Okay, I just got this code and the video demo here. It's just a few seconds of demo, so I try to make it quick and easy. And the purpose of this demo is telling everybody, so what is the Trinity look like? Supposed to look like. It's not done yet. It's just a concept video. And also how to write a DApp. I believe most of the people here are either a DApp developer or a to-be DApp developer. So you're really wondering what kind of language, what kind of code structure, what kind of framework you can use in the future to write a Trinity or Elastos DApps. So that's the purpose of today's demo. I'm going to show you what it looks like. And a lot of people are asking, can I start to writing code for the Elastos DApp right now? And unfortunately, not right now, because Trinity is not ready, Elastos not ready. We still have to keep waiting for another 2 months, maybe longer. But it doesn't mean you cannot do anything right now. You actually can start to try some coding using the framework we are using. The framework we are using is called the Ionic and the Cordova. I'll show something over there later, just a few minutes. And you actually can try to using Ionic and Cordova, making some simple mobile application. It's a mobile web application or hybrid web application. So once you know how to using that framework to make application, you actually can know 80% of how to code in Elastos in the future. So let me show you something here. If you can see my screen, so you can see the right hand. This is like a 2 seconds video. I got it about a few hours ago, so I just read it, and I know it's nothing there, but I still want to show you. It shows 2 screens here. You can see a phone simulator, and you can see a lot of icons here. So all of them are considered to be a DApp. So assuming you are making a new DApp, like a Elastos KV or something kind of game, your icon will be shown here. So the user can click it or run your application. So currently we can show here, let me play the video. You can see there is one application already running here. That is a wallet. So this is a wallet application. The wallet is a first application we put into the browser, and it is embedded into the browser. So no matter, you don't have to install the wallet. It is just embedded into the Trinity browser. We may have a digital assets into another tab of the browser as well. This is a wallet. So this example, this wallet is a DApp, and the code to create this DApp is actually here. You can see the screen on my screen. So this is a code. If you're familiar with the Ionic Cordova, this is a typical Ionic Cordova application. The only difference between the typical and the Elastos DApp is in the Elastos DApp, you can use the embedded Cordova plugin, but you can also use some new plugin which provided by the RT, the Elastos RT. One example is here. Here, for example, the Cordova doesn't have a wallet, right? But the Elastos provide, the RT provide a LAPay, which is a wallet. The wallet could be this, like you can create Cordova.plugin.wallet. Then you can call any function like wallet test to print. That's function calling back to the RT system. This is just one. This is pseudo function, pseudo code. You cannot run it, but just give you some flavor. This is the real code from this project, the wallet project. I just put here to tell you how a flavor of running a Cordova Elastos application. So we can see in the right screen, this is a wallet, and the wallet has a feature. I can click the scan button, and the application can call the phone's camera to scan a QR code on screen on a paper or something. It's very typical function of a lot of mobile application. So if you want to call the scan function actually is not in the browser. It is actually a phone's Cordova function. So in order to call that, you can just simply unclick and type is 0, then this.native.scan. This is a function we call directly through the web to the native code. So you can consider we can call a function like this and to call to a C++ code following the CAR standard. And another example for this is here. So we have a hello world demo, and in the JavaScript code, you can just during this few lines, you can new a say hello, which is class. The class actually is the CAR runtime module. When you new the object, then you can call a function in the object hello. This function actually is not in the browser. It's not in your JavaScript code. It's actually in the C++ code in the module in the RT. So then you can get the result and show the result hello Elastos. This is a very, very simple hello world application. You can see how that is used. So if you understand this, you can say if there is some function we're gonna use, like we can send a transaction to the block, we can do a verification in the block, or we can using carrier to send a message to my friends. You can just new a carrier, right? The carrier will be one module. You can just use directly from the code. Then you can use you can get the instance and the call function. The function actually is inside the SDK. You can just call it and get the feedback. It's as simple as that. So this is only 20% of something you're gonna learn new, and another 80% is just a typical Ionic Cordova application. The example is written in TS, which is a TypeScript. TypeScript is a variation of JavaScript. It's just a strong typed JavaScript. You can see this. You can use TS or whatever JavaScript. You can support whatever you want, but we only need to use the Ionic Cordova, the Ionic Cordova framework, which is what we used. If you want to learn the Ionic Cordova, I think you can learn it now. You don't have to wait till Elastos get mature. You actually can learn here. you just go to ionicframework.com, and there will be a lot of documentation tutorial telling you how to make a standard Ionic Cordova application. And once you know how to make that, you actually are almost know how to create a Elastos application in the future. You only need to add some new modules into the your projects, and you can use the modules and call the function inside the modules. The modules is just a C++ component, so it's just as simple as that. It's nothing special. You can reuse whatever you have as the language, the JavaScript language, the HTML language, the coding skill you already have. Just add a 20% of flavor, salt. You can make a beautiful DApp. This is how the Trinity working. And we only have that. So once we get closer to the deadline, we can show you more sample code. Hopefully in 1 or 2 weeks, I will work with the Chinese team to make a simple to-do list example code. So you can see the to-do list we made in Trinity compare with the typical to-do list in Cordova, in Ionic Cordova. You can see the differences. I try to use whatever we have in the RT, like a carrier, wallet, blockchain transaction, whatever we have, and you can see how easy we can call a blockchain function from the JavaScript code. You don't really need to learn a lot about the underground technology, how to do a hash, how to do a verification, how to send a transaction, how to call a smart contract. We actually can wrap it and make it transparency to the developer to make sure the developer is easy to understand, easy to code, reuse your existing technology. So that is a goal of Elastos. We make the DApp developer much easier. All right, this is what I have today. Okay, I go back to KP.
Awesome. Can you stop sharing?
Yep.
Okay. So what you saw there, you saw that Kevin was showing sort of a desktop, Trinity desktop, where you had like a bunch of different applications, decentralized applications. That you can think of the Trinity as sort of a browser that you download from, like, I don't know, App Store or something. And then when you go to Trinity, you then get into that screen that Kevin was showing. So that's actually not the actual iOS screen or Android screen. That's the screen that you get to once you click the Trinity browser app, or whatever the name is going to be in the future.
By the way, before you continue, I see a question in the chatting. The question was, so DApp will program in Cordova in Elastos only? No, actually, what I demoed just now is because the pure DApp, which is running inside of the Trinity browser. We also provide SDK, so you can use your native Android or iOS coding skill. You can just use SDK to make a native application. So this is another category. We're talking about the pure DApp, which is a Trinity DApp, and the native DApp with SDK. So I didn't talk about that. I just mentioned just now just the Trinity DApp, which is HTML, JavaScript. But yes, you can use the Java or Swift, make a Android or iOS native application using SDK to contact to the RT. Yes, you can do that, but I didn't demo now. Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. So the these pure, or pure DApps will be using Trinity, using Cordova, but then for like the hybrid DApp, I guess, so to speak, you can still use the SDK and build, write your own code in Java or Swift or whatever. Really, you can still do that. Those are provided by that's what the SDK is there for. So anyways, All right. After that, I think we're at the end of this segment here. So wrapping up. So for the next meetup, I just wanted to say that I myself am going to be out for the next 3 weeks. And then we have the Europe tour after that. So I'll be there. But in the meantime, I think Clarence will be holding a meetup next week showcasing the sort of the first demo for the website for the bounty program. But I'll be gone for the next 3 weeks. So I'll still be active. Well, not very active, but I'll be semi-active on Telegram and, Reddit or something, but I won't be on as online as much as I have been for the next 3 weeks. So just wanted to put that out there. And then we have some of the events on the horizon, the DID. If the roadmap is to be followed, which it has been so far, we should be done with the DID end of June. And then we have the Europe tour starting on June 19th. And then I think it'll run through July 4th or, sometime after that, but it'll be going throughout like June and July. It's a big tour. We're going to various cities in Europe. More information will be released later once everything is confirmed. And we also have the hackathon coming up in July and August. So really excited about that. Last but not least, as always, we always have these words of wisdom from Kevin. So anything we got for today?
Okay. Well, every week I have to figure out something to talk. Kind of a hard task. Well, anyway, okay. First, I need to thank everybody who joined the meeting. Also, the leaders. Since last 2 weeks, we starting our EBP program. A lot of people from all over the world just join us, talking to us. They want to be the leaders in their local community. I really appreciate everybody is so active. I really appreciate. And we already have a lot of leaders working with us right now. Just like the Europe tour, we already have a lot of people really active helping us to organize the trip, organize the events. Without those people's help, we actually cannot do anything. Really, thank you very much, everybody. And also, I hope more people to join us, not only for the leader program. We also have a developer program, the bug bounty program. Once the EBP platform will get online in a few weeks, I believe most people can get a lot of new idea, post new idea in the EBP program, and a lot of people get rewards. So I really hope everybody can help us. And also, not only we don't have to wait till EBP platform to be ready. We actually can contribute right now. Like a few minutes ago, Nick said he found some typo error in the beginner's guide. I tell him you don't have to wait, because everybody here in the community, we are equal. Not means KP can modify, can add, that you cannot. You can actually. You just modify the problem and create a pull request in the GitHub, and we can verify and merge your modification into the documentation. So I really encourage everybody to do any kind of contribution. Not only developer can contribute, everybody can contribute. So the community is made of people like you guys. It's not by me, not John, not KP Clarence. We are just one of the leaders. It has to be composed by everyone like you guys. So we really need you, everybody, to contribute to the community, do a lot of that. That's pretty much my this week's word of wisdom. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
And I just want to say a few words about the EBP program. So we've had a few discussions, and we think that the word leader is a little bit exclusive. So we're probably going to change that to organizers, and the EBP program will likely go a rebranding effort. And this is actually led by Faye and all the official guys from Elastos. So a proper rollout, the website will go through a little bit more refinement We hope to make this a really cool thing, sort of similar to like City of Zion, where everyone feels like a part of a community. So we definitely want more people, more than one person in a in a country. Like, we call it leaders, but if we want 10, 20, hundreds of people in a community all helping out. So anyone can be an organizer. Just reach out to us. We'd love to talk to anyone.
Awesome. Yeah, the Elastos Bounty program, the name itself will likely change, so stay tuned for that. All right, anyone else has any questions before we wrap up? I think we're right on time, so.
Oh, by the way, there is a good news for everybody. I think it's August 1st or maybe 2nd, someday around August, beginning August, we will have the Elastos first annual community meeting. We'll be in Taiwan this year because we already have Elastos has been 1 year running. We will invite some of the community leaders to Taiwan. The Elastos will pay for the trip. Don't worry about that. We'll pay for everything. We'll have a few leaders join the meetings. You can meet all the founders, most of the developers, most of the community leader. We can get together. We can discuss what are we gonna do next year, and we can have a fun day every day there. I could be 1 or 2 days meeting over there. So just have this information to everybody. I hope. I don't know how many people we can, but at least a few people will be invited to Taiwan to join the meetings. So let's have fun there.
That is really exciting.
And also, like, on the events on the horizon, so we are starting to, start a presence in Southeast Asia. So just so you guys know, you guys already know that we have the Vietnam, Hong Kong meetups, which are just smaller exploratory meetups. But we're also talking to people in Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand. So we're definitely getting out there. So I hope that we'll grow exponentially there, and you'll find a lot more organizers in the future.
Yes. So from now on, instead of saying leaders, we'll just say organizers. Just for everyone, so everyone is aware. All right. I think
Faye
with
wants
that,
to add
we
some
can wrap
cool, like, medals, or like, I don't know what you call them, but cool. Well, yeah, something like a hierarchy in a way where we can award people. I mean, not everyone. Organizers also sounds kind of boring too, so everything might change. Basically it's there's a bit of a marketing effort push now to EBP. It's become a lot bigger than it initially we thought it'd be. So I mean, down the road, this will become like a massive project, I think.
Someone just suggested Elastonians. We've actually heard that quite a bit in Telegram too. So, all right. I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks everyone for joining. And we don't. I think the next meetup will be next week. But when there's Europe tour going on, there likely won't be any virtual meetups because we'll all be busy. Just stay tuned, I guess, is what I'll say. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. The video of this
have lots of photos,
will be posted in a few minutes. Few hours, sorry, not a few minutes. Bye.